Let the MCU's Phase 6 begin. Ricky Flicks, we have just left the theater from Fantastic Four, First Steps. We saw it with our parents. We saw it with Mrs. Flicks. We're here for instant reactions. Very special edition of the Drive-In Podcast. Ricky Flicks, spoiler free for the next 15-ish minutes before our spoiler-filled deep dive coming this Monday, which will be can't miss when we have Jax returning to the podcast after he helped us with our bold predictions. Make sure you check out that episode. If you haven't seen Fantastic Four, which I assume you may have not if you're listening to this podcast, check out our bold predictions and preview. But Ricky Flex, I want to know, is the MCU off to a great start for Phase 6 with Fantastic Four?
We're off to a good start. That's what I'll say. I think we're off to a really good start. I think when you look at this movie, it needed to do a lot of things, right? It kind of had to introduce you to this next phase, which I think it did pretty successfully. I don't think it really is like a, hey, the next movie, or like, hey, get ready for Doomsday. I think it does that in like obviously one big scene, but other than that, it's not. I think overall, it's like, all right, let's just introduce you to the next like big A-listers of the MCU that it did well at, right? And I was bought in. I was bought in from start to finish. I think I was bought into each of these characters. I think each of them did a great job. Most of their individual storylines worked for me, or were properly fleshed out, proper time. And it was ballsy to go with the 60s. And I think that might have been the best part of the movie, was the actual setting and the character dynamic in this time frame, in this time period, and in this place. And I think that Jetsons like old school yet futuristic society, that all, and then also like Fantastic Four being celebrities, the Fantastic Four being the only superheroes on the planet, that whole setting vibe, it worked so well. So as in like, does it set us up for Phase 6? I think it set up these characters, are stars of Phase 6, up very well. That's what I'll say.
I'll say it's a great start, not a good start. I'll say it's a great start for Phase 6. And I think a huge part is that we are on Earth 828 for this movie, not Earth 616. 828, a tribute to the birthday of Jack Kirby, right? The creator alongside Stan Lee for the Fantastic Four. Having this movie on a separate Earth with a different aesthetic and a different, I guess, vibe than most MCU movies, I think was such a smart decision. It's not like we wanted or clamored for a 616 movie where people will ask questions. Where are these heroes? Where are they at this time? Why are they not helping out? No, we're going to Earth 828 so we can make sure we can have the focus be on the Fantastic Four and not the universe at large. I think that was such a smart decision if you want to look towards the future, heroes that you want to see return, and no one is stealing the spotlight from them. They are the rock stars. They are the Beatles of this world. The world 828, I love that decision. One of the huge parts. But I think the other thing is, I want to see these characters again. After leaving the theater, I'm like, okay, I can't wait to see him in Doomsday. Okay, I can't wait to see him in Secret Wars. I think that some characters had some really great arcs in this movie. Vanessa Kirby stands out, right? She has a lot of love, right, during this movie. The writers gave her a lot of love. And I think Pedro Pascal, I think, is going to shut up a lot of haters from this movie. I think Joseph Quinn's going to shut up a lot of haters about this movie, right? Julia Garner as Shala Bal, I thought was a really good, I guess, inclusion for this movie as one of the villains. I think necessary with like the minimal screen time of one Ralph Ineson as Galactus. You know, I think she works in this movie. I want to see these characters again. I love the world that they set up, and I love the world that they're teasing. I don't think it'd be hard to find a movie that has me more excited for the future and a better start to Phase 6. I honestly loved it. You brought the aesthetic, right? So we talked about them being like the Beatles of this world. They have like Ed Sullivan, like esque. Ted Gilbert is like the Ed Sullivan of Earth 828. What else did you like about like the 60s retro style that they had going?
Like the costume design was awesome. I
Yeah.
think it really did fit very well. And yes, there's flying cars in the movie. Yes, there's They're trying to do I'm trying to do no spoilers, but, like, alternate dimensions and whatnot. There's a lot of talk of, crazy sci-fi that is very futuristic. But it was like the Jetsons where it seemed to, like, be seamless. It wasn't like, "Oh, come on," like, with the technology. Like, I thought it worked really well, and I think a big part of that also was Herbie. I thought
Mm.
Herbie was really effective in this movie, and we talked about in the Jurassic World review and all these other things where it's like, "Oh, look at the cute, like, little, like, shtick that they got going on here." Like, in Jurassic World, it was like the baby dinosaur or, like, Grogu in The Mandalorian. Like, Herbie was not that, used the right way and the correct amount of screen time, and I thought it was a good plot device going forward with the group as you were able to focus on the Fantastic Four, the dynamics within the group, and the storylines with each character and each of their arcs. But Herbie was there to kind of, as again, a plot device, kind of filling in holes, filling in gaps. And I thought that was really well done to go along with the aesthetic.
It felt right. Marvel's First Family debut in the 60s. It feels like they belong in the 60s, and them adopting the Beatles persona, I thought was literally perfect. It's a refreshing movie, in my opinion, for the MCU because of the constant look from every MCU movie looking the same. I thought the look of this movie was great, not just because of the 1960s, but I think also the cosmic stuff was really cool. I think some of them were honestly the best shots of the movie. Jess Hall was a cinematographer here. I think what they did with the Silver Surfer in space with Johnny Storm. There's a great chase sequence that happens in space. It looked really good to me. I thought I was all into it. It was kind of a you forget about everything that happened in phase 4 and 5. It's like you're looking towards a new future. That's kind of what it felt like watching this movie. Um, Moving from the aesthetic, but talking about these actual heroes here. When we talk about the Invisible Woman, Mr. Fantastic, Human Torch, and the Thing. I mean, where do you want to start? Did you have a favorite performer out of the team here?
I think most people will say Vanessa Kirby, because I think she had the most to do, as in most written for her with the baby dynamic, with being the mother and like the heart of the team and whatnot. But I would say, like, you're right. Pedro Pascal will shut up a lot of haters. I think we talked about it on our preview pod. He kind of needed to like show out here. He's never been the lead in a big theatrical movie, let alone a superhero Marvel movie. And anything small he's ever done, he's always been a supporting character. And to take on a Reed Richards role, again, going to be the leader of this group, but also not just like a big, like, hey, I'm a good looking guy. Like he has to play like a nerd, like a lot of doubts over him playing Reed Richards. I had some doubts. I thought he did very well. And I think he was the question mark in this group of four, right? Vanessa Kirby's like, oh, she's a great actor, Oscar nominated, playing a mother. She was really Oscar nominated from being a mother, kind of, from Pieces of a Woman. You have Eben Moss Backrack, who's on an absolute heater, and he's also not even being shown in the movie, really. And then you have Joseph Quinn, who's also on a heater, and also could be that playful Johnny Storm that we know, right? It was really the Pedro Pascal casting that we all were questioning, saying, will this work? Is this going to work? And it did, and I thought he was actually excellent.
I really liked Pedro Pascal in this because he put on a performance here. Like when you think of Pedro Pascal, you think of him as like a charming guy. He's not exactly the most charming guy in this movie. He's a guy who deals pragmatically. He's a guy who you have to believe is the smartest man in the world, and sometimes will lose sight of his family in favor of science or like or like what the world should do in a moment of crisis. I believed from his performance, this guy's smart. This guy is a pragmatist. And honestly, they really leaned a lot on his brain in the movie for Mr. Fantastic. If I had to, one of my nitpicks with this movie is that we didn't watch Mr. Fantastic be Mr. Fantastic in terms of stretchiness, like physically enough in this movie. I don't think he gets the kind of, I don't know if that was more of a CGI thing because it looks sketchy at some points in this movie as Mr. Fantastic, but I think because of that, like they asked him to do a lot in terms of becoming the character of Reed Richards. I think he became the character. I wasn't watching Pedro Pascal. I was watching Reed Richards, which is something I think that Pedro Pascal hasn't really gotten a chance to do. Like he's been in so many projects, but he's kind of asked to just be Pedro Pascal in every one of those projects. I didn't feel like I was just watching Pedro in this movie. I felt like I was watching Reed Richards and someone I definitely want to see again. I like that shout, Ricky Flex. I will say my favorite though. Is not Vanessa Kirby, Johnny Storm, Joseph Quinn, I think was my favorite part of this movie. Once again, I think we're going in kind of redemptive. He kind of teased this in the promo for the movie, not being the Chris Evans douchiness, but still being a little bit of a brat, someone that can irk and grind the gears of the Thing and his sister and Mr. Fantastic, but also someone that has such a pretty good redemptive arc in this movie. Someone who's underestimated. He's kind of an underdog. Joseph Quinn, people were criticizing that casting too. Overall, the people were criticizing these castings. I think they all panned out pretty damn well. I think Joseph Quinn is someone, if I got it, like also gets a lot of the showy scenes, gets to have the one-on-ones with Shallow Ball, has the flying sequences, gets to keep his look as Joseph Quinn, even when he's on fire. I think he is my favorite out of the four heroes, I think, from the movie.
I think a lot of the CGI budget went to him,
Yeah.
and I thought it looked pretty damn good, pretty as well as you can when you're lit up on fire for over a minute in a row on screen like that. That was pretty damn good, and I think yeah, Mr. Fantastic. There were a couple scenes here. Invisible Woman. There was a couple CGI moments that were just you kind of saw from the trailer. It looked even
Mhm.
worse on the big screen a few times, but yeah, Johnny was very good in this movie, and I think I don't think like he was joking a lot. And I don't think it was very funny. But you're right where like his arc and his storyline did work. The underestimated one, discounting him, being like the fourth man in the group when it comes to thinking of a plan and whatnot. Sure, some things are unbelievable at times, and we can get to that in our deep dive next episode. But like overall, it is kind of like an underdog story. You're bought into this as an
Mhm.
audience member, right? And by the time it comes at the end and whatnot, you're like, wow, that was very effective.
I think even Moss Backrack's thing is a little bit underserved in this movie. I guess it makes sense because it's the Thing. It's the guy. It's harder to connect to. They try and do the thing almost similar to Michael Chiklis's character, but
They
I don't.
did.
It wasn't strong in my opinion. I do want to say Vanessa Kirby. I see why they cast her in this role. Pieces of a woman and strong feminine figure. This is a huge theme of motherhood throughout the story. It's a little heavy-handed at times, but I see why you get some of the best dramatic you have one of the best dramatic actresses to play Sue Storm for this movie because I think she has a lot of the capital A acting scenes that you don't literally see in most Marvel movies. I think it was good. I think they really wanted to hammer home, and this kind of bothered me. They like you knew she was pregnant with Franklin Richards, and they didn't want to sideline her, so it felt like they overexposed her in this movie. Does that make sense?
I thought it was a little heavy-handed, a little forced at times. Like some of the comedy from Johnny was forced. I think a lot of the motherhood, exactly like what you're saying with Vanessa Kirby's Sue Storm, a little bit forced here. And this movie is hour 55. It felt even shorter than that actually, with all 38 minutes of freaking uh, trailers, including the Avatar one. Insane. I think
Mhm.
that was the longest we've ever sat for trailers before a movie. So this movie felt a little short, and it felt like wow, like we're seeing a lot of this storyline, a lot of it, where
Yeah.
it's like we're not really seeing Galactus, we're not really seeing the Thing, we're not really seeing Reed Richards trying to figure this out. He's just saying, "I have nothing, I don't know." It's like I want to see you try to figure it out. So I do think it was a little heavy handed. It was a little much, but it wasn't like it wasn't bad. It was good.
Yeah, the Reed was flustered for a decent amount of this movie, but eventually, Reed Richards always kind of figures it out. I think a huge thing about this movie, something I struggle with is the pacing. It seems like they really try to introduce you to the 1960s world. They get the standing of the Fantastic Four, how they are the rock stars of this planet, and then you have the introduction of Galactus and Shallowball, and I think that was electric. And then meeting them and then fighting them, and then the second act of the movie, there is a bit of a lull, and it becomes very sciency, you know. And I know that they're flexing that hey, we're dealing with the smartest man on the planet. I have a hard time. We'll get into spoilers on Monday, but believing that everyone will be on board with this new plan that they have. I think there's really not enough scenes with Galactus himself. And this also brings me to something else. We're going to talk about the villains, but um, was Galactus a little bit maybe almost too OP for this movie? You know, I he is a dominant force. Maybe they needed to have a strong villain for the first Fantastic Four movie. You can't use Doctor Doom again. What is the next biggest thing you could do? Is probably Galactus. But at times I felt like maybe he's even too powerful for this movie. That literally can't show him because he's so much of a force.
I'll push back a little bit and say Galactus literally is the one being in Marvel Comics that doesn't really have weaknesses.
Mm.
His weakness is that he has to eat. He literally could do anything. That's why he's never in the movies. This is why the only movie he was in, he was a blob. He was a clown because he can't actually show how powerful he is from the comics because it's impossible to do. So I do think they did the best they could here. I was very satisfied with the Galactus ending, I guess, because I guess I'm more understanding of yeah, this guy is OP. They did a pretty good job showing that how powerful this guy is. How are you gonna stop him? And I think that's why last episode in the preview, I was like, are they gonna use a nullifier? Are they gonna do this or that? And without spoilers, I will say, I was like, you know what? That's probably the best that they could probably do
Pretty good.
without getting too comic nullify, you know? Crap, what did you just say before? I wanted to comment on something else.
Pacing.
Yes. Oh my God. So I mentioned off the top, I think my favorite thing was the first act and just getting into this world, different than Earth 616, 8, just learning about 828, learning about this group, non-origin story. I know we had that montage. There's a montage of the Ted Gilbert show on the Ted Gilbert show, kind of saying, hey, this is what happened. So it's like a 5-minute origin story, but then we get into the movie and you get into the family dynamics, you get into the celebrity stardom, and then you get into Galactus at the end of the first act. And it's like, wow, that was a great 40 minutes, you know? And then without spoilers, it's like, how are they going to defeat Galactus? And it was so unbelievable, even for a superhero thing. And also there's stuff with Johnny. It was just there are some huge problems and leaps in this script. And I was flabbergasted that they kind of took those steps. No pun intended. I was shocked in the second act. And then by the third act, you're like, okay, this is starting to make sense again. And storylines are coming together, character storylines or arcs, I should say. But it's am I satisfied with how everything kind of came to be? I'm fine with the ending, but how we got here, yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. And I think they could have figured out something else.
I think they could have figured out something else for sure. We'll get into it with spoilers.
You have
We can't
no
really.
other superheroes on this planet. There's nothing else. You literally could have done anything. It's a different Earth than 616. It's completely different. You had so many, you had unlimited, endless possibilities, and you
Mhm.
decided to do what they did. I was just a little upset by that.
Yep. So pacing, script, not the best. I did want to talk little bit Shallow Ball, Jennifer Garner. I think is it Jennifer Garner? Did I get that right?
Julia.
Julia. Jennifer is
Jennifer's,
Elektra.
yes.
Julia Garner. I love the Silver Surfer. I love the Silver Surfer. I think my favorite scene in the movie, there is an amazing cosmic chase scene. And to see the look of the Silver Surfer, a lot of the budget went to Johnny Storm, but I also think a lot went to Shallow Ball. And to see her on the board, the chases against Johnny, chasing the Fantastic Four, that even I love the 60s and I love that Earth that we were on, but when we were that was a freight train. That felt like, wow, I'm watching an exhilarating space chase that does not come around often. The way she was kind of creating her own trail. The way she was creating her own atmosphere around her. And they even had a backstory built in for the character, a little bit okay, we're throwing you all this at one time, type of thing that eventually is going to pay off in the end. But I like the performance. I like the look of the character. I like the action scenes with Shallow Ball. That is another character I'm just excited about, whether we see her again, who knows? But I really liked her in this movie too, as a secondary villain that you needed because of the minimal the minimal screen time of an OP villain like Galactus, and also comes with the Galactus territory. I think was a necessary component of this movie that was really good.
Yeah, and I think again her character arc that was very good in this movie. It worked to a T, I would say.
Mhm.
And especially when maybe Galactus was probably the one character that didn't really get an arc, didn't as the main villain, didn't really get one. They kind of gave more shine to the Silver Surfer here. And Galactus was more just like, hey, let me show you this character that's never been on the big screen, and he looked very good. That he was just more there for show, less about substance, and that was a little disappointing because he has a really interesting story arc too. And it's just like, again, back to the preview pod we did. Just maybe it was just too much to tackle, because this character, again, the guy was freaking around to the Big Bang. Like this, there's so much to kind of get over with this or talk about with this character. They kind of just said, you know what, let's just go the Silver Surfer route again, but we'll actually include Galactus, show off his powers, and again, by the end, hopefully it works out. And I think it did.
He looked great as well. Good detail with the suit. Great voice from Ralph Ineson. I see the castings for this movie all make sense now, right? It's like Ralph Ineson, you need someone with that powerful voice. That was the key, right? And if you watch the movie, you'll obviously see why. It's not recognizably Ralph Ineson, but it's unmistakably his voice. And there's a reason why Vanessa Kirby gets this specific Sue Storm role that fit this movie in this situation, right? I like Pedro Pascal getting able to like flex his acting chops a little bit, and being a true leading man. I just felt like a lot of the casting decisions that people second guessed. I think a lot of people proved this cast proved everybody wrong. The look, for the most part, I like. CGI wasn't a huge issue, although it was kind of faulty at times. Teasing of the world, not only of the future for the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole, but the teasing of the world throughout the movie of Earth 828, I thought was excellent. I can't wait to see this group again. It'll be interesting to see Pedro Pascal potentially leading Doomsday, or as like maybe the leader of the Avengers in Doomsday, alongside maybe an Anthony Mackie, going against Doctor Doom. I think that's where we leave it. Ricky Flex, do you have any final comments before we close up today's short form pod?
I'm debating. I know this is the first film in Phase 6, but I'm looking back at phases 4 and 5, and we'll do this on next review. But just to think about, like immediate reactions. Top 3 movie of the past couple phases, it's right around there. I'm not willing to say anything higher, but I'm thinking like Guardians 3. I'm thinking Deadpool Wolverine. I'm thinking Spider-Man No Way Home. That's what it's like kind of competing with for like best movie since Endgame.
Yes, I think it's in that tier. Where it lies, we will talk about it on Monday. So make sure, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you check out, if you haven't seen the movie, look at our bold predictions and preview that is on our channel. And then also stick around for Monday. We're going to have it also on YouTube. Spoilers with Jax evaluating our bold predictions. And we'll talk about prospects for Marvel when we might see these characters. Actually, we know they're going to be a Doomsday. But yeah, so, and if you're listening, I'm going to be putting this, you're listening maybe on Apple or Spotify. Make sure that you guys are following. Make sure you rate us 5 stars and leave a review. So that's going to do it for the Fantastic Four spoiler-free review. Until next time, we will smell ya.